Welcome everyone to today's explainer. Today we're exploring a really fascinating parallel from our source material. It's an everyday comparison between something as simple as baking bread and something as profound as how our very hearts and minds actually change. If you've ever wondered how true, lasting personal transformation happens, like why do some changes stick while others just completely fade away? Well, you are absolutely going to love the mechanics of what we're unpacking today. Let's get right into it. So, let me ask you a super relatable question to kick things off. What exactly makes flat, heavy dough rise into big, fluffy, delicious bread? I mean, if you just leave some flour and water sitting on your kitchen counter, it's not going to do much, right? It's just going to sit there looking heavy and, well, kind of dense. For that dramatic, expansive transformation to take place, you literally need a hidden, incredibly powerful ingredient, something that completely alters the physical makeup of that dough from the inside out. Now, keep that physical process of baking in your mind, because honestly, it is the perfect mental model for the deeper concepts we're about to explore.
Okay, let's dive into this text. The source material anchors its entire premise on this ancient quote from the book of Matthew. It says, "The kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal till the whole was leavened." It's a really short statement, but man, it sets up a brilliant metaphor. It takes this entirely ordinary, ancient kitchen task and uses it to explain something massive about human nature and divine influence.
Just to make sure we're all on the exact same page here, let's quickly break down that old-fashioned word, leaven. Leaven is simply a special ingredient. It acts exactly like the yeast we use today to bake bread. When you hide it inside the flour, it doesn't just sit there. No, it works invisibly, slowly but surely, bringing the entire mass under its leavening process. It permeates the whole shebang. It's not some external force pushing on the dough. It's an internal energy that fundamentally changes what the dough actually is.
Now let's connect that physical yeast to the spiritual yeast described in our source. The text identifies this spiritual leaven as the grace of God. It defines this grace as a renewing energy that we have to actively receive. Just like yeast provides the invisible energy to lift the dough, grace provides the real invisible energy for our personal transformation. It's the ultimate catalyst, changing a person completely from the inside out, preparing them and fitting them for a heavenly reality.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the fascinating claim the source material makes here. It sets up a pretty sharp contrast. It argues that all the culture and education the world can provide, all of that operates strictly from the outside in. And ultimately, it fails to truly change a degraded soul. Like you can learn all the right rules, you can memorize perfect behavior, but just trying hard isn't enough. True change? That requires the inside-out approach. It absolutely requires the secret inner ingredient, God's renewing energy, to be mingled directly into the heart to transform your whole life. It's literally the difference between just painting over a patch of rust and completely replacing the metal itself.
Let's move on to section 2, working from the inside. Just look at the beautiful phrasing here. It says, the leaven of truth works secretly, silently, steadily, to transform the soul. I absolutely love the alliteration there, secretly, silently, steadily. It really drives home the point that this interchange isn't loud. It isn't flashy at all. It doesn't happen with a booming voice or, a sudden lightning strike of instant perfection. No, it's a quiet, continuous process, operating deep down inside where literally no one else can see it at first.
The text actually walks us through a very specific, logical sequence of how this grace acts on our inner being. It's so much like a yeast slowly bubbling and expanding in a ball of dough. Step 1, our natural, harder inclinations are softened and subdued. Those rough edges just start to smooth out. Step 2, the mind is changed. Our faculties are actually roused to action in entirely new directions. And then step 3, the conscience is awakened. We suddenly become sensitive to things we previously just completely ignored. It's a totally progressive internal awakening.
As that awakening happens, the source tells us that grace goes to work replacing our old, selfish struggles with entirely new internal drivers. It implants new thoughts, new feelings, and new motives. Basically, the old operating system is uninstalled and a brand new one is put in place. And what is the benchmark for this new system? Well, the text says a new standard of character is set up, and that is the life of Christ. This becomes the internal blueprint that this spiritual yeast is constantly working to expand within a person. Okay, let's move to the next part and see how this builds in section 3, showing on the outside.
Here, we can perfectly contrast those hidden heart changes with highly visible everyday behaviors. We start on the left with the invisible changes, a heart overflowing with love for God and others, and having humble opinions of self. Self just isn't constantly striving for recognition anymore. And because of that invisible reality, we get the visible outward changes on the right: politeness, tender regard for others, and kind, encouraging words. See, a loving heart automatically causes polite words. It's simple cause and effect.
The text gives us a super specific list of these outward signs of grace. Take a look at these. It controls the temper. It controls the voice. Now, have you ever found it incredibly hard to control your temper or your tone of voice using just your own willpower? Yeah, I think we all have, for sure. But the source argues that when this leaven of grace is present, it brings kindness, gentleness, forbearance, and long-suffering. It just naturally regulates those exact things that we struggle so hard to manage on our own.
And this next point brilliantly illustrates the physical reality of this transformation. The text says the countenance is changed. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that this inner grace literally changes how you look to others. It's not just your words or your temper changing. Christ abiding in the heart actually shines out right in your face. Your expressions soften, your eyes carry a totally different light. That internal peace literally becomes a visible, radiant glow.
And that brings us to our grand finale, a heavenly celebration.
The sensory language used here is it's incredibly beautiful. It reads, "An angel presence is in the home. The life breathes a sweet perfume, which ascends to God as holy incense." You know, we often think of angels as these really strong, masculine, heavenly guardians, right? But this text tells us that this kind of comforting, divine presence actually takes up residence right inside the home of a changed person. The everyday life of this person becomes so completely transformed that it is compared to a sweet perfume, rising up to God like holy incense. And the reaction to all this, it isn't just a quiet nod of approval from above. No way. The text describes a literal heavenly party. As these changes take effect, it says angels break forth into rapturous song, and God actually rejoices over the transformed soul. To put that into perspective, all of heaven celebrates when just a single person allows that hidden leaven of grace to completely change them from the inside out. That is huge. So, what does this all mean for us? We end with this thought. How will you let this secret leaven of grace work inside your heart to change your actions today? As we've seen, all the external effort in the world just can't match the power of this hidden, renewing energy. It softens the heart, it controls the temper, and it literally changes your countenance. I really hope this explainer gave you a clear, powerful picture of how true transformation actually happens. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this fascinating text. Keep seeking out those hidden ingredients in your own life, and I'll catch you next time.